I've managed to accomplish most of what I wanted to achieve with this demo, but there are a few small improvements I'd like to make before we finish it off. The first thing I'm going to do is remove all these console logs. It's getting extremely difficult to read and figure out what is going on. We could obviously have a little bit of a better debugging system, but for now I'm just going to remove them all. We are going to keep this finished one however. Let's go ahead and run this and see if there's any outstanding warnings or anything we need to look at or fix. And there are actually a few warnings. It's regarding the custom components that we haven't defined yet. I'm going to go ahead and define those now. They're just going to be very simple wrappers. However, we might like to support more complex custom components in the future. So let's go ahead and make sure we have that support ready. First thing I'm going to do is define a component. So I'm going to actually create a new function. It's going to be called create component, or let's call it define PDF component, because they're all going to be very similar. We can actually share them. It's going to have a tag of a string, and this is going to return a new define component. So we're just going to jump in here and say define component, not define PDF component, define component. There we go. Going to pass in the name, and that's just going to be the tag. And then we're just going to go ahead and create our render function. And this is going to be a fairly simple one. We're going to go ahead and just return everything that we've received. So I'm going to say H, that one comes from Vue, I just imported it automatically. The first one's going to be the tag, the second one's going to be the attribute, so this.attrs, and the third one is going to be the slots or the children. So we can just do this dot slots, I believe, and see if that is available. And if it is, we're going to see if it's a default slot, and if it is, we're going to then go ahead and call it, and that should hopefully work. I'm getting an error here. I think I've got the syntax incorrect. I'm still getting an error here. Let's go ahead and try this one out. Looks like that's not going to work for me. There we go, that's what it's supposed to be. Let's save this one off and see if it works. What we're going to do is attempt to create all of these components in one go. So I'm going to say const view is going to be equal to define PDF component. It's going to be a view type. We're then going to go ahead and have our text type as well. It's going to be text. And finally, we're going to have our document type. So we're just going to say document is going to be a document type. The next thing we need to do obviously is register those. We just need the view and the text here. And with a bit of luck, those warnings should now be gone. Let's go ahead and give it a try. And hopefully we're going to see a nice clean output. So hopefully everything is still working, and so it is. Definitely a good place to be. I guess the next question at this point is going to be, how can we improve this renderer? Obviously we can provide some more interesting custom components. I haven't done much exploration there, but everything should work as you would generally expect. There might be some weirdness with asynchronous renders because we're only really supporting a single pass render. However, there is a number of ways to work around that. Let's go ahead and have a look at some of the other existing examples for some inspiration. There is a project called React PDF, which is pretty fully featured. It's actually quite amazing what you can make with this. They have an example here. They've made this really nice looking document, and you can see how it works. It is very similar to what we have. They have a top level document. They actually have a page component, something I'd like to try and make for my PDF renderer. They have this text element, they have the image element, and obviously that's going to go ahead and load the text or the image. And if we scroll down here, we can see the styles. They do it in this one giant object. And it's not just you can use any style, you have to be very specific with which ones are supported. If we take a look at their documentation, it shows exactly which ones are supported. And if you're making a PDF, you probably don't need to get too fancy. The main things you want to have is a good layout system, something like Flexbox, and probably some different colors and different font sizes, all that sort of thing. So I might go ahead and have a look at this example a little bit more and see what I can come up with and create. However, it shouldn't be too difficult to implement the rest of the things now that we have a very basic rendering function or a custom renderer. I'm not too sure what the compelling case to do something like this is. I think the PDF Kit API is just fine. I guess there is some benefit to having this declarative API. There are probably some limitations, but I guess we won't know those until we've explored it a little bit more. Anyway, I think that's enough for now. I would encourage people to go ahead and play around with this and try and extend it. And if you do have a real use case for a PDF renderer in Vue, please let me know. That might give me some more motivation to continue working on this. Other than that, you might have seen this before, but I have written a book which has other advanced information. If you do enjoy this kind of advanced content, go ahead and check that one out. There will be a discount code in the description. Anyway, that brings us to the end of the lecture, and I'll see you in the next series.